Um, I'm so excited for our question today.
I know it has been a hot minute,
It
but I'm so
has.
happy to be back in this chair with you.
Yeah, I think we just had our company meeting with the team, and I feel like the request inevitably comes from either me or you. Like, I want more time with you,
Mhm.
right? Like, can we have, and so, we're going to be working in the same building soon enough.
You mean the building we own?
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Um, in Chicago, somewhere, don't fret. But yeah, I had the moment yesterday too where I was like, God, I wish Katie was here.
Mm,
Because I just was
mhm.
having one of those days where I was like, I know if I vented to her for like 10 minutes, but I don't want to do it on Zoom, you know?
It's not the same on the phone, and
Yeah. Yeah.
even venting on the phone, you don't get to like slam down the receiver anymore. You just hit,
Right.
I guess I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really anticlimactic. So, well, we're here today. Ask us anything. We have been asked a question and we're here to answer it. And this question actually came to me over text message from
Okay then.
yeah, fine. You can, by the way, as you're listening, send us questions however you like. A lot of us or a lot of you get to interact with us in person, over the phone, maybe. Yes,
Mhm.
maybe otherwise. So drop us a question any way you like. But this one comes from a chief marketing officer who is looking for a new role. And she says, Hi, Katie and Emily. I am a mom of two, middle-aged, and a marketing executive in Chicago. I've been on the job hunt for about a year, and I'm starting to feel worthless. Like
Mm.
there are no opportunities for me in this market. I've applied for some incredible things and even got interviews, but have had to expand my search. Now I'm a finalist for a job in Los Angeles. But am I seriously going to move my family? I want to land something in Chicago that I'm excited about. I just feel like I never will. Help. So, yeah, what do you feel? What's coming up?
I feel a lot of things for this
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah.
I feel it experience from what she wrote, the the existential dread of it seems like there are so many options, but no options at the same time.
Mm,
To make your way to CMO and then uh, seemingly what I'm hearing is that in her writing is this sense of I failed, I'm no good, really questioning her own, I'm making an assumption, her own worthiness. She said mom. So
hmm.
hearing those two things, those are the challenge of the chaos in the job market right now for anyone looking for a job, coupled with likely already having a full-time job because the unemployment numbers are so low, and needing to then after a day at a job you don't want to be at spend the time investing in a search. It's exhausting and it can feel really demoralizing too when you don't hear anything or you hear something and then you get ghosted. um Everything that she's experiencing is real and she's absolutely not alone in it.
Yeah. Can you say more about what you're hearing from your clients and just your life in general about the job market right now? What are
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
So the big things I'm hearing about the job market generally right now, not necessarily from clients, but just from the resources that we all have
Yeah.
access to, technology and media, those fields are still the hardest hit. I know there's looming layoffs with big tech coming up here in the next week or two, so don't be surprised if you see something there. There's also lots of companies right now doing a whole lot of quiet hiring where they are
Mm,
giving people opportunities to do more to prove themselves for a promotion in the future, which is also reducing the number of roles that they have to hire for, and
Mm,
that they can post. The other thing is, I mean, we are recording right now on January 11th. There is always a dip in not the job market, but in what prospective candidates are seeing in terms of posting, how they're hearing from folks, if they're hearing from prospective employers. We're going to start to see an uptick in that if it follows every pattern it ever has, for as long as I've been doing this. But as we make our way more to the middle and the end of the month, we'll see more postings, we'll see more opportunities. And I know the Biden administration just released its latest numbers. And the unemployment numbers are the lowest they've been in decades. And so that's great. And there's also not a lot of movement happening in the labor market right now in the same way that we were seeing in the early pandemic. And so it's also, I think it feels very stark, like there were so many opportunities and now
mhm.
there are none. When I think there's the same amount of opportunities there's usually been, potentially even more, but compared to what we were seeing in late 2020 through all of 2021, it just doesn't feel that way to folks anymore.
Yeah. As I'm listening to you, what's coming up for me, it's so interesting, right? And in the clinical space too, I remember when I got my first diagnosis, I felt relief, sometimes just knowing that there's a thing to call this
Mhm.
makes it so like it's not personal. It's like, oh, okay. So that's why I appreciate for this questioner to think about themselves in the macro space of a lot
Yes.
is going on as you consider the gravity of attaching your worth to whether or not you get the job you want in Chicago. Part of what comes up for, so that's one thing, right? Is like
Yep.
you're not alone. So I just want to lift that up. There's a lot happening that you can't control. And then I think you and I can get into like what you can control. Um, the other thing is I'm not clear in the question if this person is currently employed or in transition.
Mm.
Um, this is where I think, at least for me, it's like, yeah, 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 that's great. The numbers are great, 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 great. But in my life, this sucks, you
Oh, yeah.
know? And so how do we then, it's both, right? So I'm going to focus for just a second on like the part that's like, that's saying, am I really going to move to LA? Like, I don't want to move to LA. By the way, if you haven't listened to our the last month's AUA, it was AMA. I answered because, of course, Katie was out changing the world somewhere across the United States. I don't think it was international, but stay tuned. Um, that our last question came about like, I hate where I live and what should I do? And it was, I hate Los Angeles. So don't move to LA, questioner. I'm telling you, the warning's there. Okay. But also listen to that because it was a good 10 minutes of me
You
rambling.
were brilliant.
Thanks.
Mhm.
So am I really gonna, I just feel like what I want to address is how are you measuring your worth? So there is this like, yeah, you're probably doing everything right. And there's stuff happening that is happening to everyone. And so that makes it hard. And then there's this like, a couple things like, who wouldn't feel a sense of crisis when the thing that you're so good at, you're obviously good at this, isn't sufficient for you to land the plane yet? And so, how do you then keep gas in the tank? Because, there is the option to move to LA. It sounds like she has an offer on the table or soon will. Um, and I guess I'm feeling a pull on my heartstring of like, careful, like if you really don't want to, what I'm hearing is like, I don't want to uproot my family and move to Los Angeles so that I can feel worthy. I'd actually like to just sort of like stay here and manifest this worth here. So my next question is like, how else can we measure your worth?
Mm.
Because this job search may take a minute, and I don't want you to wait. I want you to feel worthy today. And you can come in and out of that because I know I do. but really using this as a time to kind of get in touch with the confident self, the capable self. And I'll just say for me, the a real like shortcut to feeling worthy is for me. This is just for me. I look at my values and I think about, what have I advanced today for myself that really no one knows about, but it was for me. And that goes to my top value, which is independence. So it all would, for me, with this questioner, kind of come back to, I'm just looking at some notes I took. Um, whether or not I wrote this down, whether or not you land something great in Chicago, you're worthy today. So, like, how do we prove that to you?
100%.
You know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
And I think with the proof, it's also reframing what her identity is. I mean, as Americans, we are notorious for
Yeah.
inextricably intertwining our identities and our careers.
Hmm.
And it sounds like there may be a little bit of that happening too. And so, Emily, I think you were getting to this. What are the things that, as a human, right? Remember, we are humans that happen to work. We are not workers that happen to be human. What are those different qualities and identities that you can really lean into and explore further right now and set those little goals or those little aspirations to bring those to the forefront while you have the space and time to do it.
Hmm.
Because this is that intertwinedness between our identities and our careers. When something like this happens, of course our sense of worthiness goes down because we don't know who we are when we don't have this title or this company to stand on, and that can be
Yeah.
really dangerous.
Yeah. Question I would ask this person is, if you don't land a job that you're excited about in Chicago in the next year, I lost the question. Okay, so that was the setup. Well, how would you end it? Uh where would you derive, like, if nothing changes? Which of course things will change because that's the nature of life. But like, where would you derive joy, fulfillment, and excitement from?
Mhm.
Like, what else? It's kind of like the question really is like, what else is there?
Other than
There.
work. And there's
Hmm.
a lot.
Hmm. Hmm. And what about work? Because I bet if we really unpack it, is it the sense of community? Is it the sense of purpose? And the answer is yes. Is it the sense of like creativity, of control?
Mhm.
Work, I don't want to diminish it, right? Because you mentioned the American ideal and sort of how we think about our identities in this country. Also, like, that's kind of great sometimes, that we feel really, it's just the motivation behind it, the intention of like, I really identify with, my work being who I am. Then the question is like, well, what else? Because what if work changes? I just want to challenge the idea that it's the work. It's really something much
Mhm.
deeper that gets met by working, you know? Um, so yeah, that kind of like, what else, even if nothing changes, like, what else can you hold? Like, what's the most important thing you can hold on to, even if you don't get a
Mhm.
job for another year? Also, you can move to LA if you want to. I mean, you can always move back. But it gets harder with a family, you know? Um, so I think those would be the questions that I might ask to keep us talking. Um, and thinking about, the everlasting worth versus the temporal worth, which is like, that's going to change. But where's this rootedness and groundedness, the worthiness coming from?
Mhm.
Anything else
Mhm.
you'd add?
I think, I mean, at the end of the question that the writer posed or the listener posed, I think there was some like, I'm gonna have to make a decision. How
Oh, yeah.
do I go about making this big decision? Like you said, uprooting not just yourself, but partner, kiddos, new schools, new friends, new networks, starting sometimes what seems to be again for some folks who have a big sense of adventure like me. It doesn't sound too terrible. I went to LA for the very first time in my life over the summer and loved it way much more than I thought I would.
Hmm.
But really being able to discern what are your decision-making criteria here, because there are so many feelings and those are data. We just want you to be able to quantify them to feel more confident in the
Mm.
choice that you have moving forward. So coming up with, even if it's more of a affective or emotional criteria instead of a cognitive or kind of quantitative criteria. Um, what are those decision points for you, and being able to weight and rank them appropriately when those opportunities come along.
Hmm. So, look, listener, we're here for you. I think getting back to Katie's initial sentiment, like you're not alone. We know that for a fact. That can provide some comfort, and it's really important to keep in mind. And on those days when you're feeling like, yeah, but this sucks, I think our advice is really to orient around the things that make you worthy. Spoiler alert, it's existing, but also the things that make you worthy that you can affect that day and taking some action there. And then, ultimately thinking about how you want to think of pace and urgency around this, and offering you a chance to bring in some community as you go through the discernment and have a way of making a decision that you feel really confident in, that's rooted in you, no one else. I mean, frankly, Katie and I can help you with it, but ultimately, and we will, if you'd like that, um, you have to extract that for yourself. And I think that's best done in conversation. I think we'd both agree. That's certainly what you do for me, Katie.
Right back at you,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
People say if you don't write it down, it doesn't exist. If you don't say it out loud, it doesn't exist either. So both
Yeah.
and.
So can we give snaps to this listener for texting me? Because now I'm in on it. Beware. Uh, so I will be taking care of you through the process. If you have a question for us, we'd love to hear from you. So you can text, you can submit it through the website, who'smissingpodcast.com/ask us anything. We are doing this monthly for now. We might do it more. I mean, I know I could do this and do this all day. But yeah, submit your questions to us. We'd love to hear from you. And it's probably, this will come out in February, but I'm still going to say it. It's the last time you'll hear me say it. Happy New Year. Off we go. We're into it. How's your New Year going, by the way, Katie?
Oh my goodness. Let's just say I am really looking forward to the next 50 weeks of the year. We're going to call the first 2 weeks a false start.